I'm good, right? Yes. Okay, that's good. I don't know why. It's just like a weird pop up, and it just wasn't working. I'll try to open it up again in a minute and see if I can get it to start. Sorry about this. We just had a weird little hiccup, but things seem to be improved. All right, now we're back. It must be the fucking data centers. That's what it is. Yeah, I'm watching the video.
Will joke that they just need that money to buy and make some shady deal to screw over the working class. People will joke that they just need that money to buy their 4th yacht. And like, I don't even think it's that. They could buy 1,000 yachts and still not run out of money.
Matter.
They don't want to spend their wealth. They just want it to get bigger. It's the same obsession with seeing number go up that keeps me addicted to old school RuneScape, except the only life that's ruining is my own. What they have is a disease. They have been scourged with the blight of insatiable greed, cursed to an endless pursuit of wealth that will never bring them true happiness. I would almost feel bad for them.
I think there's a bit of an exaggeration. I think that a lot of them, like, in some cases, it's not necessarily this like massive existential emotional problem. They just like building the business and they just want to make it bigger for no reason other than to make it bigger, right? I don't think it really has to, there doesn't always have to be like a psychological component to it. They could just like building businesses. But in a general sense, yeah, there's a point where enough is enough.
They weren't actively destroying the world in the process.
Yeah,
one of the most frustrating things about this problem is that if you even try to suggest that maybe these guys should just have a little bit less money, like you guys can still be rich, whatever, just turn it down a notch because you're kind of making shit terrible for everybody else. You're treated like you're crazy. No, this is the American way. If you don't like it, then leave. And yet these ideas aren't radical. They're not even new. Most people who advocate for a more progressive tax system are only calling for a return to something that used to exist in this country. We just forgot about it. So I think it's important to do it.
This is true, by the way. All of this is accurate.
History lesson here.
If you can believe it, there was a time where the
he's gonna say it
in this country actually had it really good, and it was mostly because things got so bad during the Great Depression that the government was worried about the country collapsing. Thousands of
not a good time.
Millions of people lost their entire life. Unemployment peaked at 25%. So in fear of a revolution happening, the government was like, all right, fine, we'll give you livable wages. Just please put that musket down. I don't like the way you're looking at it. So the New Deal was born, and with it came Social Security, better labor standards, the right to unionize, national wage, and 8-hour work.
Wow.
For 2 to 3 decades.
It's crazy how much work he did. It really is. He's nuts. In my opinion, he's one of the best presidents
on Earth. Productivity skyrocketed and wages rose with them. Extra profits weren't just redistributed to employees, but their employers were proud to do it. They would brag about how lucrative it was to work for them. Look, 37% of profits went to our employees last year.
Yep, there you go. Isn't that crazy? Like, can you imagine them doing that nowadays? This is like super rare.
We win.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt
puts out this mission statement that's like, here's our list of priorities in order. Customers number 1, we got to make good products. Employees number 2, everyone who works here needs to feel valued and respected. Community number 3, we all want to live in a better world, and as a company of our size, we feel like it's our responsibility to contribute to that.
Always a mistake. Because any of these companies that do this shit, like, they say that they're going to help, but that only matters enough. I think the videos are honest. You want to produce anything in the United States, you have to sacrifice something. Otherwise, China will produce everything. I think that I would rather sabotage almost anything than lose the AI race. I think that it's worth almost sabotaging nearly anything in order to win that, because I think that it will be a it'll be like a next like electricity or something like that, right? So like I do agree. Like the thing is that, like, yeah, and I think that his video, like, you're right that it all does fall flat whenever you have a rival competitor that is doing and pulling out all the stops and willing to take any risk and sacrifice anything. Is that if you want to beat that person, you either have to innovate in a way that they haven't thought of in order to make up the difference, or you have to meet them where they're at. And so I think that really, I mean, we're trying to do both, really, obviously. But yeah, and if you don't do that, then you're going to lose even more than if you sacrifice the things in order to win. And I think that's very clearly, like, that's the logic. I even agree with the logic. There's ways you can do it to the better, right? it's not everything in the world is binary.
Can just have whatever we like. Of course, we need to make a profit to survive and
Sure.
grow, but that should just come naturally as a byproduct of focusing on these three tenets. Compared to modern corporate standards, this is
This is one of the things that like people don't understand with making videos too, is that you shouldn't try to make money with your videos necessarily. You should just try to make very good videos, and then if you make very good videos, you'll make money. Like, I really mean this. I haven't checked the amount of money that like I make on most platforms in like a year. I don't even know how much money I make. Because I think that thinking about it is like a brain poison. I don't ever like thinking about money. It's because then it's the quality, right? It's what I do, and it's the focus. It's why I stream every day. That's my main focus.
such a foreign concept that it almost sounds like it's coming from a fictional universe.
Yeah.
But this actually happened. This was just America 70 years ago. Now, during this time, what do you think the tax rate was for the wealthiest Americans? For reference, in 2025, the highest income tax
It's like 70%,
bracket is
I'm pretty
supposed
sure.
to be around 24%.
Yeah.
But because of how many ways there are to circumvent the rules, it often ends up being as little as 3%. For someone like Elon Musk, who doesn't take a salary,
Well, the reason why it's so low also is that the majority of the wealth increments that they gain is through capital gains and stock gains. It's not really like they have a big pile of like billions of dollars in their house. Like they don't have a bank account with $1 billion in it. Like it's abstracted through stocks and other types of asset investments.
from Tesla and instead just owns
That's the reason why.
stock. As long as he doesn't sell
Loans.
any of that stock, then technically there's no income to tax.
Exactly.
Now
Yep,
he can
there
still
you go.
leverage the value of those stocks to make purchases.
That's right.
How money works, but it's still not tax efficient. Of course not. This is how people like him and Jeff Bezos can be
Yep.
of net worth, two of the richest people on the planet, and in some years pay $0.
I really,
And
yeah. We really got to figure this out. 70%.
20% or even 50%. It was between 70 and 94%. And honestly,
Insane. Crazy. Like tax rate. Yeah, exactly. It's just crazy. It was. And this is what's so nuts to me about this is that, like, all the people that advocate for this kind of stuff and like the higher taxes, like, and I think it really puts it into perspective. Like this Ryan Mandami, like, oh yeah, we're gonna increase it by like 2% or 5% or something like this. This is nothing. It's really nothing.
sounds great, but even a lot of the people being taxed understood that it was necessary for society
Yeah,
to
of
continue
course.
to exist. And having a strong middle class was a crucial investment into the future of the country.
Because if you have the middle class, then you can have people that are buying your stuff regularly. It's like the idea of having the golden goose and then regularly collecting eggs instead of killing the goose.
I don't know, man. I just think it's kind of interesting that during what's referred to as the golden age of capitalism, the government did a bunch of social. During the period of time that birthed
In order to have proper capitalism, you need to have regulations and forms of socialism. It's like a yin-yang, right? Like you can't have it all one way or all another way. You can't have all capitalism, you can't have all socialism. Both of these extremes will lead to like a fucking like a dystopia.
the idea of the American dream, the government was taxing the absolute shit out of the richest Americans
Yep.
and using that money to provide jobs and welfare programs for everybody else. A single income household working a regular ass job could afford to start a family, buy a house.
Remember this? Yes, he did.
Save for college, and retire
Yeah,
at a
I don't know.
reasonable age. No wonder people who grew up with gush about
No?
capitalism.
Yeah, same.
For them, it was great. But at this point, it is disingenuous to
Yep.
use that time period as the example for why capitalism works. Because
I think that he's right about this. And I think that using this time period and then not contextualizing it around the way that, wealth was regulated is like, it's like saying that you lost weight, but not mentioning that you lost weight by cutting off your arm. It's just, it's totally dishonest.
that version of it stopped existing.
Completely
a long
dishonest.
time ago. The generation of people who started as beneficiaries of a more equitable system changed the rules once the roles were reversed and they had the power. So what the hell?
This will always happen, by the way. It will always happen and it will never change. Because the greed that people like Elon Musk are accused of having is the same greed that poor people aren't able to act on. The idea that, you know, there's some sort of like latent virtue in the working class and poor people that if they were given these opportunities that they wouldn't do the same thing is completely naive. They would go and do the exact same stuff. And some of them would probably be even worse.
Happened. Everything was going great. What changed? Well, there were a lot of things, obviously, but one of the first big dominoes was the U.S.'s involvement in the Vietnam War, which was expensive and deadly, but to be fair, also accomplished nothing. And this had long-term ramifications. America had been diverting so much money away from manufacturing and towards defense that it opened the door for other growing industrialized countries to surpass them. More and more products were becoming cheaper to import than they were to produce. This led to factories getting shut down, unemployment starting to creep back up.
I still think that it's crazy that Japan got nuked twice and they managed to rebuild their entire country and then beat us in the auto race like fucking decades later. But meanwhile, you have other countries that have looked like they've been getting nuked every single day since like the year 100. Isn't it crazy?
Recession hit
Germany, yeah.
Fork in the road in the late 70s. Either you go back to what
Surely that must be the only reason.
prioritize the work.
Surely that's the only reason.
Infrastructure, try to help lift people out of poverty they've fallen into through no fault of their own. Or we say, fuck the government. We don't owe you shit.
That's right.
Isn't that right? I don't even know my
Yep.
Exactly.
All right.
Taxes. And we don't do it.
That's right.
Sounds good to me. The prevailing
Baked.
of the 80s became trickle-down economics. The logic being, oh man, these rich people are really
Well, there is trickle-down economics. It's when they piss on you. And also, there's another form of trickle-down economics where, you know, one guy makes $1 million and then he pays, this is the trickle-down economics in effect, he pays for DoorDash and he gives a $3 tip to the DoorDash delivery driver. That's it.
You know, I bet we lowered the corporate tax rate from 70 all the way to about 28%. Then companies
that's
would
low.
use all that extra money to pay their employees more. I mean, if it wasn't
Wow. Yeah.
for some reason, this hasn't worked out yet.
Well, you can never expect anybody to act in good faith. You can never do that because ultimately, even if the people who create the system acted in good faith, you will always have systems like that that will eventually become perverted by people who don't. So you have to have systems of regulation and accountability. Because even if you think that you're going to do it the right way, the fourth guy after you won't. And also, like, another, like, parallel to this is, like, the idea that wealth will only last for 3 generations. That it doesn't matter how wealthy a person is, that, you know, 2 or 3 generations later on down the line, that, you know, they're going to lose all of that money. And I think that you can really just apply that thinking to, like, a lot of regulation. And just human psychology, how people behave.
The jury's still out. See, I would argue that part of the reason why companies you're faced with a decision between giving a huge chunk of money to the government or redistributing it back to the employees who helped you earn it in the first place, you would be much more likely to do the latter because it's an investment in your own company. It's a mutually beneficial exchange. Well-compensated workers are proven to be more loyal and more productive, and
This is the way I felt at the IRS. Whenever I worked at the IRS, like, I was getting paid whenever I was on, like, fucking, like, because you have, like, different multipliers in the government. And so, like, I was getting paid, like, and this is back in, like, 2013. I was getting, like, $20 an hour, or, like, $18 an hour, which was, like, fucking insane at the time. Especially for me, like, because I didn't really have, like, any other, like, really great jobs before then. So that was nuts, right? I was balling. And so, like, for me, I thought to myself, like, I'm going to show up early every day to this shit. I'm going to do my work as well as I possibly can be because I'm getting paid all this fucking money. And, you know, I don't want to get fired, right? I don't want to get kicked out or anything like that. I think that's the way a lot of people do, right? It's like if you give people more money, a lot of them will perform better. Now, obviously, this is not the guarantee, but there's clearly a trend. There is a trend. It's an incentive, yes.
2 things that you want. Now, there were other factors as well, loosening a lot of anti-monopoly regulation.
That's the big one. That's the really big one, is the anti-monopoly regulations. With phones right now. If you want to get an app to to market on a smartphone with any sort of a phone, you have to either go through Google or Apple. They have a complete duopoly on all types of fucking apps. It is complete bullshit. They behave the same. They have the same rules, and they have the same operating conditions. Completely regulated. Totally regulated. And the fact that they aren't is a disgrace. Meanwhile, they're trying to micromanage Microsoft buying Blizzard. Suck my fucking dick. Are you kidding me?
But this dramatically
Jesus.
lower tax rate is a big reason why the 80s serves as the dividing line on just about every economic graph you could look at. This was the beginning of a long,
Warner Brothers, yep.
continuous transfer of
It's a new big
wealth
one.
from the working class to the top 1%.
That's right.
And while it would be very easy to just blame all of this on then President Reagan, that would only be
Reagan also did that amnesty bullshit. I thought Reagan, like, there's a way I like Reagan, but he fucked up a lot of stuff. I think conservatives look at him with way too much rose-tinted glasses. I think he's things that he has done have set us up for problems like 30 and 40 years down the road.
mostly true. Sure, this new approach opened the door
actor?
for more
Yeah.
exploitation.
The actor
and
with
greed,
a-
but
with
you
a-
still
wasn't
needed
a-
a few scumbags willing to go
a
through
fucking
that door
monkey,
for
right?
the evolution to be complete. And nobody sprinted through it faster than one man. The
Who?
real-life
Who?
cartoon villain who
Who?
designed the blueprint that most modern CEOs are still following to this day. His name
Elon
was
Musk?
Jack Welch. and
Bald.
He's often referred to as the man who broke capitalism. During his
Uh-oh.
tenure as CEO of General Electric, he turned the once quintessential American company that reshaped people's lives and
Yeah.
supplied hundreds of thousands of high-paying jobs all across the country into a worthless carcass and a joke of a corporation,
Wow.
all while he became one of the richest people on the planet. In the century before Jack Welch took the reins, GE invented things like X-ray machines, jet engines,
Wow.
TVs, radios, and just about any kitchen appliance you can think of.
It's pretty good.
In the 1980s, Jack invented laying people off.
Well, hey, I mean, at least everybody uses that invention a lot now, right? So you can't say it didn't get popular. It really caught on.
That was his big idea.
He's a
What if we just
visionary, yeah.
fire them? And then we don't have to spend as much money. It seems so simple and obviously very commonplace today, but before Jack, companies were not doing this. It was almost seen as un-American to fire somebody unless you absolutely had to. But
And
Jack-
this is even something it's always hard for me to be certain about this because there's so much like fucking noise. But there are people that say that in Japan, there are guys that are like 45, 50, 55 that aren't really quite at retirement age, but the company doesn't have the heart to fire them. And so, like, out of a matter of respect, these guys just show up to work and don't fucking do everything all day until they get retirement. And like, yeah, exactly, yeah, real Miltons, exactly, yeah. And yeah, salaryman? No, that's just the term that's used. There is a term for it, but it's not that term. That's just somebody who works that way.
Jack didn't think that.
What a job. Yeah.
He blatantly instituted the rank and yank system where every year the bottom 10% of employees
Yep.
get laid off no matter what. Not because they all deserve to be fired, but just because they fell on the wrong side of a spreadsheet. What's that? You were cleaning away from the
Mandatory quotas like that are really destructive. And the reason why they're destructive is because whenever you gamify a job or a profession, people stop doing the job and they start playing the game. This is one of the reasons also there's a second order effect of this that's happening in the federal government. So, for example, everybody who works at the federal government is rated for performance, or at least they used to be, on a 1 to 5 scale. 3 is good, 2 is retarded, 1 is fuck you, 4 is I'll suck your dick, and 5 is you're going to be the president. That's basically the way it works. But you want to get a 3. The 3 is what you want. And so in order to evaluate fraud claims and any sort of inaccuracies or problematic, any sort of like problematic data inside of a form, a document, a submission, usually the way that the systems and the algorithms are set up, it's not actually calculated into your performance. So the performance assumes that you're not going to have any of these, like 1% situations. But everybody knows if you're processing 1,000 documents a day, you're on average going to have 10 of these every single day. But because it's not amortized into the unit value of the amount of things that you're going over every day, what ends up happening is that people are then trained to skimp and to do bad work because they're trying to meet the quotas for their job rather than trying to do their job. That's the main problem and the big issue that a lot of these like systematic process analyses or analyzed like systems work. And so so now you guys see that happening. So there's the incentive for it. Now can you see why there's so many, like let's say people in Minnesota, many of them are Somalian, but this happens everywhere, that are scamming the government. The reason why they're scamming the government is, well, maybe they're pieces of shit, maybe they're retards, sure. But another reason why it goes through is because the government has a system that encourages the employees to allow scams to go through. And once you see and you take a step back and look at all these pieces put together, you will see that we have engineered the most bad faith version of an economic system that we could possibly have. And I think that really that's the term that I want to use the most, is it's bad faith economics. And that's what happens.
Retirement and now you no longer qualify for pension? Okay, then die. And to be clear, the layoffs were also not because the company wasn't profitable. It very much was, but it just wasn't profitable enough. See, when you routinely shut down entire facilities, you uproot thousands of lives, you create a toxic and selfish work environment where loyalty is replaced with fear. And if you're a company with the size and influence that GE had at the time, you can almost single-handedly destroy any semblance of a middle class across all of America. But this number, it's a little bit bigger.
That's right.
So it's kind of a fair trade. GE will get
well, I mean, and this is also, it's inevitable that this was going to happen because of fiduciary responsibility through each company. This was inevitable.
Forefront of this countrywide philosophical transition from an economy that cared about making things and rewarding the labor it took to do so, to an economy that only cared about shareholder value.
Big money. Big money.
Anything it could to make that number go up. But the thing about the stock market is it's mostly just about perception. As long as something seems to be growing in value, then people will be more...
The best example of this, if you ever think that the stock market isn't vibes, I think that obviously there's more to it than vibes. But the best way that I can show you that the stock market is vibes-based is the stock price changes after Elon Musk and Donald Trump won the presidency. Like Tesla's stock prices went up by like 30% or something like that because, he was very instrumental in Trump winning the presidency, even though it never manifested in any sort of increase in the value of the company. So the company gains 30 so percent value based off of a projection, perception, or some sort of promise or hope. That's it.
More likely to invest in it, which will in turn cause it to be more valuable. Even if it should. A lot of what Dan did during his time as CEO did not make the company better, but it did make it bigger. And in the eyes of Wall Street,
guys, who knows a lot about accounting? The amount of bullshittery, especially whenever you're dealing with like so many different industries and enterprises, the way that you have the interplay, holy fuck. Like, it's again, bad faith economics. I'm an accountant, yeah.
That was
GAAP accounting is hilarious, yes. Genuinely accepted accounting principles. AKA the legal experts.
I mean, come on, something boring like selling products can only grow so much. But a company that's constantly acquiring other companies simply has no ceiling. I mean, they could be worth infinity dollars when you think about it.
That's
what
right.
they did.
All the dollars.
GE bought and sold hundreds of companies, and Jack Woods lauded for his brilliance because from the outside, everything seemed to be working. I mean, sure, they were becoming a bloated, nonsensical hodgepodge of unrelated businesses, eroding the company's infrastructure and prioritizing.
Well, this is also, I think this is just bad business development. Like, you can go as far back as to J.D. Rockefeller or to as recent as Elon Musk. where you have people that build vertical integration in different businesses that they own and operate. And that's the way that, for example, that's the reason why Apple is such a massive company, right? Is that they have all of the vertical integration inside of the development of their systems and their products completely in-house. So there are very few times where there's a middleman that's taking the shade off of the top of it, basically, right? Netflix, Cosplay Girl, yeah, kind of, in a way. But, like, basically vertical integration is the way that, if you look at the success story behind almost every single, like, extremely wealthy person, except for people who are capitalizing on new technology, vertical integration is at the forefront of their business model.
As in constant quarterly gains over any long-term
By the way, this is the reason why whenever we had O2K, I thought it would be a good idea to do Starbucks, because then you can use the people that are streaming in order to promote the fucking computers, right? And then you can also have Mythic that could get more people to promote the computers as well. It's vertical integration. That's, I mean, it's pretty fucking simple, right? It's, oh wow, look at this. Oh, the thing that everybody else did. Let's just do the thing that everybody else does. Oh wow, it worked. Holy shit, I can't believe it.
price has never been higher. They stumbled upon an infinite money glitch. They're just alchemizing value out of thin air. Founded by Thomas Edison. Doesn't even make their own light bulbs.
Well, Thomas Edison didn't invent his own light bulb, and some of the, accusations are true. So maybe it's just more a return to form.
To get them somewhere else. Okay. All they care about now is their ballooning financial division. They're issuing high-interest loans. They become a massive builder of subprime mortgages, a famously good investment to make in the early 2000s. Literally, whatever it took to juice the numbers, that's what they would do. After about 30 years of short-term decisions that received instant gratification from shareholders, but were gradually making things worse for the company and its dwindling number of employees, GE had become severely overvalued. And it wasn't until right after Jack retired with his $400 million severance package.
The thing that's crazy about this is, like, y'all saw the pictures of this guy, right? Like, these are pictures that were taken in, like, 1985. You can tell just by the lighting. This is, like, fucking... Like, this guy makes Bobby Kotick look like a broke bitch. Like, think about how much money that is nowadays.
Where his successors stepped in and were like,
wait, this doesn't make any sense.
The time bomb Jack planted explodes in their faces, and GE spends the next 20 years slowly bleeding out. And at this point, they couldn't fall back on just like selling microwaves because they'd been cutting corners on production so long that nobody wanted to buy any of their shitty garbage anymore. And of course, they had fallen way too far behind on innovation because they spent all their money on acquisitions instead of research. By 2021, the company that helped bring electricity to America was Mercy.
A lot of very big conglomerates roam an empire themselves, where they spread themselves too thin, and then their competency is displaced among too many different products, and all of the products fail. It's very common, actually.
Mercifully laid to rest, split into 3 separate institutions, none of which have come close to the dominance or influence that GE once had over the American economy. But here's the thing. You know who isn't affected at all by the cataclysmic downfall of General Electric?
1%ers.
Jack Welch. Because he's dead now. He already got to live his entire life of luxury and adoration without ever having to...
And here's the... No, here's another component. Imagine if he only got $40 million. He would still be living a life of absolute luxury and entertainment. The entire idea that, like, at a certain point, money, the number becomes cosmetic. It doesn't even matter at this point. It's kind of like whenever you're playing a video game, if you're already hitting a damage cap, like let's say you're, you're fighting monsters that have 100 health, it doesn't really matter to you if you go from 100 damage to 200 damage, does it? Doesn't make a difference because you're going to kill them in one hit anyway. And this is the thing that a lot of these people don't understand is that you're going to hit a cap and there's like massive fucking DRs here. Yeah, Expedition 33. Yeah, exactly. You're hitting 9999s like fucking in the first act sometimes if you're using roulette, right? And so you don't even need to worry about like, okay, at that point, are you going to keep using your big hits or are you going to instead use something that does smaller hits over time, right? And I think that's really what these companies do, right? Is that They never think about that. They never focus on that, and they just kind of accumulate more and more money that does basically nothing. It doesn't improve your life at all.
Deal with the fallout caused by his action. He took control of a building with a rock-solid foundation and just kept scrapping it for parts until the only thing left for it to do was collapse under its own weight. But by that point, he was long gone. I believe that this is the goal of those who now follow in his footsteps. They don't need to care about whether or not what they're doing is harmful or unsustainable. As long as the facade can be maintained long enough for them to receive awards, it doesn't matter that the shit is sitting behind them, because they have a lifestyle.
It's also like, it's important too that you don't have to do it for your whole life. There's plenty of people who run companies into the ground and they're alive to see it happen, and it doesn't matter because they just make the money back anyway. They get a golden parachute exit deal and they get paid $5 million and so they just don't even work for a year or multiple years, and they just sit around and that money collects interest. It's crazy.
That America spent the past 60 years exporting all its jobs and decimating the economies of small towns all across the country because the few hundred people responsible for those things already got to live long.
That's right.
This
Even if they stop making money immediately, it wouldn't matter.
cutthroat corporate culture, Jack Pioneer, is still seen all around us today. And through the magic
I don't agree with blaming him. I don't. I think that this was an inevitability based off of fiduciary responsibility and greed of the consumers and investors reaching its logical, obvious conclusion. This is something that would have happened anyway. Maybe he speed ran it, but we'd probably still be in roughly the same position we're in.
time is only getting worse.
He is.
CEOs make $1,000 every second while their
That's a
employees
lot.
have to piss in water bottles so they don't fall behind. Routine layoffs regardless of the position because they are too normalized that
I think that asking and expecting companies to provide welfare is ridiculous. I think that we should expect this from the government. A company's job is to create a product at a price. A government's job, in my opinion, is to protect and take care of its people. I think that this displacement on unaccountable third-party corporations that are international that have, in a lot of cases, no real ties or obligation to the United States, I think this is it's a siren song. Right? I think that the more that you listen to it and you go in that direction, the more it will be a bad thing. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have any accountability in companies, but I don't think that's really where the solution is going to come from.
market rules the world. Every major decision dictated by this purely volatile and short-sighted metric. And look at where that's gotten them. Millions without jobs, an enshittification epidemic, and a concentration of wealth that should be seen as a threat to
Venice, for your wedding, you can pay more tax. I wonder how many of these people are still alive.
humanity. Even while owning everything, billionaires live in fear of losing it. So they weasel their way into politics.
That's right.
They influence elections.
Yep.
They buy policy changes. They use their wealth to...
There were political cartoons of J.D. Rockefeller doing this over 100 years ago. This is not new. Crassus did it in Rome, didn't he? Always has been, always will be.
reshape the world to benefit them even further. They try to control narratives by buying up news outlets. They can dictate what's on our social media feeds. They spend an enormous amount of resources
Walt
on
Disney.
pitting us all against each other, so we're too
So, I mean, I think that basically you have to look at. So, if you look at, if you think that something is a manifestation of core human behavior and psychology, you should never expect that the problem will solve itself without dramatic and extreme regulation and controls. And I think that some of these videos, I think that it's very popular to be hateful and hostile to people like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. You can do that as much as you want, but it will never be productive because even if these people retire or they die, they'll just be replaced by somebody else that will do the same thing. It's kind of like the metaphor that I use all the time, where these people are effectively the cookies, and you don't want to go after the cookies, you want to go after the cookie factory. Because the cookie factory will just keep making more cookies. So even if you throw away a dozen cookies, there's just going to be more cookies that replace them. So that's my focus.
distracted to see that the real problem is them.
It's like another great example of this is that, you know, whenever Luigi shot that United Healthcare person, it's not like insurance in America just suddenly went away and it got good again.
It's all against each other, so we're too distracted
How
to
many
see
cookies?
that the real problem
6
is
million.
them.
Should the human race survive?
I love this guy, by the way. He's absolutely fucking schizo. All of the stuff about the fucking, what do you call it? The Antichrist and everything else, I think he's great.
Everything kind of sucks right now. As a result, most people are justifiably pretty angry. But for media outlets and politicians, that anger is their single most powerful tool because they can tell you where to direct it. And they don't even really care who it is, so long as it's not them. That's why it changes all the time. Sometimes it's trans people, sometimes it's immigrants. Most recently, it's been poor people.
Well, important to keep in mind that the immigrants are being the only people who are the real beneficiaries of mass migration and mass immigration are billionaires and business owners, because they're the ones that are able to utilize, take advantage of, and abuse and exploit the labor of people who are illegal in the country or migrants in the country. Those are the people that actually benefit. The working class doesn't benefit. The middle class generally doesn't benefit. The upper middle class probably benefits because they're getting like basically cheaper like lawnmowers, right? And cheaper maids. But otherwise, the main people that are really getting all the money are the big corporations, right? They're the ones and the business owners. Modern slavery? Well, modern slavery. I would say it's more like indentured servitude. I think slavery is too harsh of a word, but yes.
This whole war going on over food stamps. The government shut down 42 million Americans
That's right.
lost access to SNAP benefits. Now that's
Yes.
an objective piece of information, inarguable statistic, but depending on how it's presented to you, it may lead you to draw a drastically different conclusion.
Well, you saw on Twitter, right? I mean, you see like there's a black person that's bad with money that's spending all their food stamps on Takis and Dr. Pepper. And so now we should just let poor people starve. The problem is that the people are retarded. And it's so easy to just totally manipulate people's perception. And it's getting worse every single year.
Else. For some, it might put into perspective how dire the situation has got. Like, surely there's underlying issues with a system that's allowed 12% of the population to be unable to afford food. Alternatively,
That's
you
a
might
lot.
do that and think, wait a minute, my tax dollars are paying for these.
Well, the problem also is that, it's more than 12% that can't afford food. It's only 12% that officially qualify for not being able to afford food.
Greedy freeloaders? I'm busting my ass over here to barely make
Exactly.
ends meet, and these leeches are using my money to buy cookies?
Yeah, basically, like, the $60,000 a year people hate the $20,000 a year people.
Not fair. And all it takes is highlighting a story or two of someone taking advantage of the system.
Hey.
It's this rampant issue that you're expected to
I
feed.
think it is. I think there is actually a rampant issue of people that are taking advantage of the system. It's definitely true, but that's inevitable. Every system that gives away stuff is going to have people that are taking advantage of it. In the same way that, you know, whenever they're doing the ICE deportations, there are people who get detained unfairly. When there are laws that are made for, I don't know, speeding, there are people that get pulled over unfairly. There are also going to be people that are paid out unfairly whenever you have a payout program. This is inevitable. This is an inevitable reality that the only way to avoid it is to do nothing.
All of these people with money you barely have enough of to feed yourself. This narrative has been used since the 70s because it's very effective. You work hard, they're lazy, this program is bad. It's easier than ever now to push this narrative because you can just AI generate a video of a
But she is really fat, though, right? And do we really need to be feeding? And the thing is that I think that most people, whenever they see a fat person that's on food stamps, that's just gratuitously buying a bunch of food. Because, by the way, I know that fat lady buying a bunch of food gratuitously that she doesn't need. It was my mom. And I was right there behind her, in front of her, putting it all in the cart because I was buying it too, because we got food stamps. It was fucking amazing. So, yes, I know that they're real because I used to be one.
He's screaming at Walmart and get everyone pissed off. But in order to properly analyze this, let's take a look at the data. First of all, SNAP only makes up about 1.5% of the overall federal budget. Less than an eighth of what we spend on defense, and an eighth of what we spend just on interest on the debt that we owe. By my math, cutting this program would only save the average taxpayer a couple $100s a year. Of course, that's assuming that if they were to cut it, they would send you a refund. You know, I'm pretty sure they would still take the same amount.
It would go to Israel, actually.
Instead of reinvesting it into the economy, which is what SNAP ultimately does, they would just buy some more missiles or send a pile of cash to Argentina. How about that? By definition, the majority of SNAP recipients fall under the umbrella of elderly, disabled, veterans, full kids, and caretakers, or just temporarily unemployed. Remember, not everybody who isn't working does so because they don't want to. It is very hard to find and keep a job right now. The fact that SNAP spending ebbs and flows so closely with the overall state of the economy should be proof that this program is primarily used for temporary relief. Even still,
that's actually a really good argument. I like that. I've never heard that before. I've never seen that graph. That's a good graph. I like that graph.
Many of the people on SNAP do work, and about 70.
Well, I actually, but to be fair, I also think that this graph is a bit problematic, because if you see here, this is really what the issue is. Let me just go ahead. I can pull it up and show you guys. So if you look at the actual graph here, you can see that the baseline of COVID is still higher than the baseline afterwards. And I think this really also goes to show that a lot of the economy, I guess like the best way to say it, a lot of the economic recovery is artificial. Because if it wasn't artificial, you would see this number go back down even more. But it's not. How is it the economy keeps getting better, but at the same time, all these people are still stuck on food stamps? There you go. Is this adjusted for inflation? Total spending? I don't know, actually, if it is or not. That's a good question.
Work full time. That doesn't seem like a laziness problem. That seems like a wage problem. They need supplemental income to survive because of how little they're being paid. Of those full-time employees, their two most common employers were McDonald's and Walmart, who combined to earn $23 billion in profits last year.
Not that much.
$23 billion. And you're telling me they can't afford to pay their employees enough so that they don't need government assistance? See, what that means is you wouldn't have to help pay for these people's food if
there was a scandal in like 2009 or 2010 that might have been 2008, I don't remember exactly, but Walmart was caught teaching people who were working at Walmart how to supplement their income from working at Walmart by applying for government assistance. So like basically they're offloading the burden of taxes onto the actual fucking person.
Employer, a nearly $1 billion corporation, just paid them a livable wage. You're more upset at the people using the program than the companies who have put them in a position where they even need it in the first place.
Well, the companies want them to use the program.
Walmart double dips here. The majority of food stamps are redeemed at Walmart. So not only do they save money by underpaying their staff, but their revenue then gets subsidized by this program. Because that's where
keep in mind, one of the people that was an heiress to Walmart was a massive funder of the No Kings protest for Donald Trump, who ended up locking